A couple years ago, politics got really repetitive to me, so I stopped paying attention to most of it, but I'm still aware of what's going on. I have been in Republican spaces for a very long time, and I am an independent Gen Z, so my opinions are not coming from a woman that's been liberal for decades or voting Democrat at all. I don't support Sambo or muling behavior. I've explained why I want most black women to vote independent or not support anyone. Don't give votes to people who are not representing and advocating for you specifically. We have very specific issues that's not about all women, black people, Americans, people of color, minorities, marginalized communities, yada yada yada, and whatever other names that don't acknowledge us specifically. If they can call you out specifically for problems, they can come to you specifically for solutions. If you want someone like Trump to win, he can win without your vote. I want to address some black immigrants who don't want to admit when they are struggling financially and in fact are not successful doctors, trying to find a financial come up by ranting about black Americans online or my comment section. Yes, I have a problem with liberals and their supporters, but I also have a problem with conservatives. Black immigrants from Africa and the Caribbean who can find it in their heart to thank white males for quote-unquote fighting for their rights in the military, but won't acknowledge the black women who carried the civil rights movement, fought and died, even some joining the Union Army, and were the ones who actually got them the right to leave their third world and come here. The reason why black women's hair is no longer banned, why can in the modeling or acting industry worldwide, not being portrayed as monkeys anymore, why they have access to education and almost every freedom they have, it just lets me know they have no genuine appreciation for the damage and suffering that took place in order for them to have life-changing opportunities like most Asian and European immigrants who also behave like this. Especially for any Caribbean or African woman attacking the people who took the brunt of the attacks to our image while reaping all the benefits. That's quite the choice. They also just repeat talking points without any real deeper look into what they're saying. That doesn't sound like the type of people you should be listening to. I speak separately about triangulation and why people try to compare one group to the other to get them to dislike each other, specifically Black American women. Usually, when you see a foreigner trying to get popular or clout using politics, she will initially refer to herself as a Black woman, knowing that people will assume she's Black American and flock to have all eyes on her. They'll only acknowledge their ethnicity when they think a comparison will make them look better. Of course, not all foreigners are like this, but it's a noticeable enough pattern. Not to mention the amount of biracials also referring to themselves as Black women and trying to speak on our behalf. No one will pay attention to these groups if they don't use the word Black. Black women need to not engage with people who try to bully or coerce them into going along with talking points or narratives. It's totally possible and probably likely that you can agree with something that a conservative white male is saying. However, if you express disagreement and the first response he has is to insult or attempt to dehumanize you, that's not somebody you need to be engaging with in any type of way. If they start referring to you as buzzwords associated with liberals or refusing to acknowledge you as a human, that's dehumanization. For example, someone calling you a feminist, woke, any type of term used as an internet buzzword. An example of this is a TikTok that I saw where a Hispanic or Asian woman whose entire identity revolves around owning the libs referred to a little Black girl in preschool as a liberal. Not as a cute, innocent child, but a political ideology. That's dehumanization, and it's extremely dangerous. Also, white people using the term BLM synonymously with random Black women. Now, obviously, I don't like liberals, however, BLM is ironically mostly made up of non-Black college students, so clearly, it doesn't make any sense to call someone that. Again, they're trying to take away humanity by referring to you as something that's not alive, because BLM is not a person, it's a political organization. People that behave this way, that's not people that can ever genuinely support you or any other Black girl or woman. Politically, that's not people that can advocate for you. Black women need to be very aware that because of your identity, not only as Black, but as women, people will attack your identity before they address anything else. Even if their disagreement is about something unrelated, Michelle Obama is frequently attacked and insulted, despite never being the president. Why? Because she's a Black woman, so she's addressed more than Barack himself. Kamala Harris, another biracial pretending to be a Black woman, addressed unprovoked more than Biden himself. Biden's identity as a white male is never brought up in any type of insult, but Kamala's fake Black persona is. Even if you don't like another Black woman or her political opinions, you still shouldn't allow her identity to be attacked, unless you're pretending you don't share the same identity as her. If a non-Black woman says the same thing, they'll add a caveat and it won't be attributed to her identity directly. White males are invested in fixing and reinforcing their white male patriarchy. That means most of them will be pro-white and pro-male that could do harm to the collective of Black women. So you can see why other races of males or white women would be so eager to jump on board and latch on to whatever benefit they think they can get by claiming to have the same values. So a white male is likely to refuse to acknowledge the failed global behavior of black males because it would lead to people questioning their own patriarchy. The term fatherless homes insinuates that black American homes will be magically better if there's a present father simply because he's a male, but better for who? And what type of male? As if the chaos of the black community already isn't the product of their presence. Just going back decades, their leadership is seeking out young boys to sell drugs on their behalf so they won't go to jail, having kids all over town outside of marriage, committing violent crimes more than anyone else and victimizing women and children, using money to buy chains or cars instead of building up their community. Forcing this to be in the same home and black women and kids, child abuse and black femicide rate would increase dramatically, even worse than now. And there's plenty of reasons why white males in particular would not feel compelled or care enough to address this. To some of them, long as you are playing the role of a married woman going to church and looking good outside, that's all that matters. Even if you and your kids are abused and suffering inside like your great-grandmothers. You're just going to suffer in silence until your race stops existing and the abuse will only be covered up more, especially with male-identified black women around, allowing males to torture their daughters. The same black issues present today will continue because they've always existed. It's just more obvious now. Black women need to be balanced and fully comprehend the idea of prioritizing themselves. You can agree with a liberal or conservative without supporting them. You can be a proud woman without joining women movements, because the purpose of these movements could ultimately harm you as a black woman or take up your labor and resources while only benefiting other women. Same thing with being a black person. I explained that I've been in conservative spaces because most black women themselves have never been in those spaces, so likely don't know any better. They probably are tired of liberals, as they should be, and want change. I don't support black women jumping into the conservative movement. Black women need to let go of this urge to be a part of groups or have belonging with other people. No one is going to put you first. You put yourself first, and you need to consider yourself an individual, not a part of a community. I'm not telling you to literally segregate yourself, but I mean politically and from some social ideologies. Black American women should be aware that usually if you see a black woman who recently wants to come out as a conservative on social media, it's probably a grifter too lazy to get a job and white people send them money for some reason. Someone who won't get past their black fifth-grade bullies, an immigrant trying to seek a reward by insulting black Americans, or just a normal black American conservative woman, but unfortunately, the latter is the rarest type of conservative you'll see publicly. Those people, along with 99% of black males who claim to be conservative, come off as performative and fake. If you have genuine conservative values, you need to understand what actual conservative Western values is. You're not a white male, and you need to understand that you are not living in your original environment. You are a black woman, and your original ancestors are from West Africa and very few from indigenous America. And I mean real Africa, not colonized Africa. American values are not really traditional to you, but it's conservative and traditional to white males from Europe. But it doesn't mean that you have to completely disagree with them, because there is some shared values that you'll genuinely have on your own from African civilizations created by your black women ancestors. Having conservative values does not mean that you set up a microphone and camera and start talking about how much you hate black people and racism is all in their heads. Even if you honestly can't stand most other black people, it also doesn't mean referring to yourself as the N-words for Trump. And I was not shocked at all to see that ignorant foolishness being posted. With as many problems as I have with other people who look like me, I would never sit up and list every wrong that I've been done by black people while at the same time dismissing and ignoring any type of hatred from white people. Because clearly, there's an agenda at that point. If you hear a self-proclaimed conservative bringing up the identity of a black woman, again, even if whatever they disagree with has nothing to do with her identity, they will not do the same thing to other people. Because then it will be, well, why do you have to make it about race? Understand that the vast majority of all people who talk about black women or the black community have no intentions on solving any problems. They'll talk about ways you can do better, but they don't actually want that, and most of them will actively work against progression after criticizing. It makes them feel better about themselves to lecture and point out all your collective flaws. I don't know what's so interesting about black Americans to people, but there is a weird obsession with studying and observing every breath. They'll go on and on about bad culture, and by the way, black American culture is not hip-hop. Hip-hop is a genre of music. Black American women have created genres of music that's not hip-hop or another genre from black males. Black women have never controlled the media, so they can't pick which music genre is pushed into mainstream media and can't stop industry plants from getting the spotlight. I don't support the black women who choose to listen and laugh along to that music. But still, music does not equate to culture, and the issues prevalent today existed before that music was a thing. Go look up Josh White's 1932 song Jet Black Woman if you don't believe me. His song and prison work songs from the 1800s about nappy-headed black women being ugly for having dark skin, being mean, and how black women need to be nicer and deserve to be beaten. This is before single motherhood, welfare, or feminism was a public concept for these modern people trying to find excuses. If you research real history, you'll see several more examples in early America and even in Middle Ages Europe and Africa. Same behavior, same rhetoric. But back to my point, they'll go on and on about Black culture in America and they have no real points to make outside of ranting. When they bring up crime, they want to lower the crime, but clearly then they would have to address how most Black girls victimized sexually, being trafficked the most, and having their life ended the most. Nope, they'll just say something vague like Black on Black crime, culture issue, moving on. No specification on who committed the crime and who the victim was, because they don't care. They'll do something about migrant crime all the way in Europe before addressing Black girls in America. Even if you remove adult Black women from the equation because they chose bad partners, young Black girls did not choose the environment they were born in. Single motherhood is often brought up in these discussions, and Black women need to know that no amount of marriage to these males is going to fix their problems. There's plenty of incorrect rhetoric that's constantly being spewed. For example, Black women apparently had the power to kick Black males out of the homes they did not own, and they wanted to live off welfare. This is a lie. The vast majority of Black women have always, and I do mean always, been single mothers in America, even if they were legally married for 60 years after getting married off to an old man when they were teenagers. This is what happened with Harriet Tubman. And again, she was married on paper after her predatory old husband disappeared with another woman. These things you just can't make up, and it's eerily similar to today, where Black males can prey on a minor in a bad neighborhood, not sign the birth certificate after she gives birth because then he would go to jail, and disappear while claiming all types of lies about not having children. So there's fraudulent parenthood stats that's not reflecting what's actually happening. Black women have always historically been forced to work sharecropping and domestic jobs, being away from their children and not living off welfare. We're taxed and more employed than Black males, while also being denied the right to vote. Even today, most Black women are not on welfare. Same as affirmative action, it's a white woman concern. That's another point with self-proclaimed patriots and constitutionalists who constantly bring up 1776. They will never acknowledge Black women who have been here for hundreds of years when talking about taxation without representation, freedom, independence, or exploitation from government elite. I'm going to bring up Africans again because not a lot of Black American women know that, unfortunately, some Africans tend to be very dishonest. Specifically in the UK, there are Black migrants who have a single motherhood problem. Asian women in Southeast Asia, again, another single motherhood problem. White women in all Western countries, again, another single motherhood problem when they procreate with Black males and even some white males. But single motherhood is attributed to one of the smallest percentages of the world's population, which is Black American women. But we already know why. I just want you to think about that, and how Black women are tasked with dealing with something people falsely claim is a culture issue, and whose culture just like is with Black American women back in the day. There's a lot of Africans in Europe that are legally married, yes, but raising children alone. I've also seen incorrect narratives that African males work all the time, and African women are living their best soft life, sitting around chilling, drinking champagne while the maids clean up because they earned it with their femininity and Christian values. This is absolutely not true. Some African women are fleeing their countries, being sold into slavery, and the males who were raised by fathers are leaving them, trying to be the first in line to flee ahead of the women and children. Women and girls have little to no legal protections in Africa. African males are in the UK being the European version of Black American males, referring to Black girls as men and UK beasts. Africa is currently being recolonized by some Asians, and Africans are being whipped with their land and resources taken. I don't know in what world people are living in where they are telling Black American women that these males are the standard of manhood, and this is the type of behavior and culture they should be striving for when African women themselves are running away from this. Most of these African women have jobs and side hustles themselves, and they are too proud to admit that sometimes they pay most of the bills, there's domestic abuse, and their husband has children outside of their marriage. Just like Black American women, they force their oldest daughter to help raise the other kids because they do need help and it's not coming from a male. Now back to my triangulation point, you'll hear a white American or Black male talking about Africans. They won't mention any of this, and they will actually create an entirely different narrative that parallels with Asian immigrants in the 60s and say these people are so amazing, but why are you so trash? The careers and educational achievements of these women will be brought up as standards of superiority and intelligence, no matter how fraudulent, but they discourage Black women in America from having any career at all. African people will not correct people making up this false narrative, because in this case, the narrative is finally positive and not negative, like when these same people said they have AIDS and lived in huts. This does not help any problem because it's a lie. Getting married is not going to help Black American women. Black women who are single and child-free should not care about people trying to shame and insinuate that their entire lives should revolve around one thing, and it's being conservative, getting married, and start popping out kids. Black women have a lot of extreme issues to be addressed, but the remedy people claim to have is not going to fix these issues. I have to mention this because people often try to entice Black women with catch-all solutions in politics, but that's simply not going to happen. You're better off never having kids at all. There is no president or local politician L that can solve your issues with the swipe of a pen. You can play your part as the supposed good woman, but you're not God and you can't control the behavior of other people. Republicans and Democrats have many topics they both secretly work together on, and America is going away completely out of the control of American voters. No matter which side wins upcoming elections, the problems are still largely going to be there.